Ready to build some apps? Today we're tackling how to ace that mobile application developer interview. We've got a super helpful career guide and some real interview questions thanks to RoleCatcher. Think of it as your secret weapon for interview success. Plus, we've got some insider career advice to help you stand out.
It's like having a superpower, especially with RoleCatcher's AI helping you tailor your answers to each company and job. But we'll get into that a little later. First, let's break down what a mobile application developer actually does.
Yeah, beyond just coding, what's a typical day like for a mobile app developer?
Imagine this, you're building the apps we use every single day, from social media to those handy tools that control our smart homes. It's about taking an idea and turning it into something real, something that lives on millions of devices.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing how to code. It's about problem solving and creating something people actually want to use.
Exactly. You're crafting an experience. And it's not one size fits all either. You'll be working with different operating systems like iOS and Android, each with its own quirks.
So you need to be fluent in multiple tech languages, like a digital polyglot.
I like that. And speaking of why this career path is so hot right now, think about it. Augmented reality, virtual reality, the Internet of Things. They're all powered by apps. We're interacting with technology in ways we never imagined before.
It's like the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
And mobile app developers are the pioneers leading the charge. Speaking of navigating uncharted territory, let's dive into the interview prep. This is where RoleCatcher really shines. They've got this awesome database of real interview questions, and we're going to break down some of the big ones.
Let's start with a classic. What experience do you have in developing mobile applications? It seems simple, but it's your chance to make a strong first impression.
It's like that dreaded question, tell me about yourself. Except instead of talking about your cat, you're showcasing your coding skills.
Right. Here, the interviewer wants to see your practical experience, not just theoretical knowledge. This is your time to shine. Talk about your projects, even personal ones. Did you build a game to learn a new language? Did you create an app to solve a problem you were facing? Anything like that is important to mention.
So instead of a generic, I know Java, it's more like, I use Java to build this app that helps people find local farmers markets, and it's been downloaded over 1,000 times.
Now you're talking about it. Highlight the technologies you've worked with, the tools you're comfortable with, and most importantly, the outcomes you've achieved. What did your app do? Did it solve a problem? Did it gain any traction? Those details make your experience stand out.
That's where RoleCatcher's AI comes in handy, right? Their platform helps you fine-tune those details and highlights the most relevant experience for the specific job you want.
Exactly. And be prepared for follow-up questions. The interviewer might dig deeper into a project or challenge you faced.
So it's not enough to just talk about what you built. You need to be able to walk them through the hows and whys of your process.
Precisely. They want to see your problem-solving skills in action. For example, they might ask, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced during development, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so be prepared to go deep. Got it. What's next in our interview obstacle course?
Let's talk about user experience. The interviewer might ask, how do you optimize mobile applications for performance and user experience?
Because what good is a beautifully coded app if it takes 5 minutes to load or crashes every time you try to use it?
Exactly. You need to show that you understand both the technical side and the user's perspective. It's about more than just writing code. You're crafting an experience.
Okay, so how do I get that across in an interview? Should I start talking about frame rates and algorithms?
Those are important, but let's start with the user ever. Emphasize that you value a smooth, enjoyable experience. For example, you could say, I believe an app should feel intuitive and responsive, almost invisible to the user. Then you can transition into the technical aspects and explain how you achieve that.
So something like, to make sure the app is smooth and responsive, I prioritize techniques like minimizing memory usage and optimizing load times.
Now you're speaking their language. You can even get more specific with things like image compression or lazy loading. This shows you have a deeper understanding of those performance optimization techniques.
Don't be afraid to get a little technical, but always bring it back to how it impacts the user experience.
Exactly. And this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can help. They can analyze your answers and suggest ways to tailor them to each company. It's like having a personalized interview coach in your pocket.
I'm really liking this AI coach. It's like having a secret weapon to combat those interview jitters. So we've covered experience and user experience. What else should we be ready for?
Security is critical in today's digital world. Be prepared for a question like, how do you ensure the security of mobile applications and user data?
Okay, this sounds serious. It's like building a digital fortress.
Exactly. It's about showing them that you take security very seriously and you're not just slapping on Band-Aid solutions. Start by mentioning the basics, like encryption both at rest and in transit.
So if someone hacks into the app, they'll just see a bunch of gibberish.
Exactly. Then you can mention authentication, making sure users are who they say they are, and authorization. Authorization is about controlling what different users can access and do within the app.
Makes sense. Not everyone needs access to everything. It's like how I don't need to know the Colonel's secret fried chicken recipe, even though I'm a big fan.
Right. And here's where you can really showcase your knowledge of industry best practices. Mention something like OWASP guidelines. These guidelines provide a framework for mobile app security. It shows you're not just familiar with the concepts, but you also understand the established standards.
OWASP guidelines.
Yeah.
Got it. It sounds like you need to be fluent in tech jargon in this field.
It can feel that way sometimes, but don't worry. The key is to be aware of these industry standards and speak about them confidently. And again, RoleCatcher can help you here. Their AI analyzes your answers and can suggest ways to incorporate keywords and concepts. This makes your responses even stronger.
It's like having a tech encyclopedia at your fingertips. Okay, we've covered user experience and security. But this industry moves so fast. How do you keep up with all the latest advancements and trends?
That's a question interviewers love to ask. Be prepared for something like, how do you stay up to date with the latest mobile application development trends and technologies? It shows you're truly passionate about mobile development, not just going through the motions, you know?
Okay, so how do you nail that answer? What are some I'm on top of my game type resources?
It's all about continuous learning. Staying Sharp podcasts are a great place to start. And there are tons of blogs dedicated to mobile development. You can mention those too. Online courses, conferences, personal projects that pushed you to learn new tech. It all adds up.
So you're saying it's like having a side hustle, but instead of selling handmade crafts, it's building apps that could change how we do things.
Exactly. The point is to showcase that you're hungry for knowledge, always looking to learn and grow. Did you teach yourself a new framework just for fun? Did you contribute to an open source project? Those things show initiative. They tell a story.
So don't just list off resources. Explain what you learned and how it makes you a better developer.
Precisely. Show them you're not just passively consuming information, you're actively using it. Now, moving on from individual skills to teamwork, be ready to answer, how do you handle mobile application errors and crashes?
Because even the best developers can't predict every single thing a user might do.
Right. You'd be surprised. Sometimes it feels like they're trying to break things. But seriously, this question is about how you deal with those inevitable problems. It's about being a problem solver. I remember this one time I was working on an app.
Ooh, story time. I love a good tech tale.
So this app kept crashing, but only on Tuesdays, and only for users named Greg.
No way. Seriously, what did you do?
I started by checking the error logs. It's like the app's diary. You know, it tells you what went wrong. Turned out it was a weird date formatting issue that only happened on Tuesdays because of time zones. And the Greg thing, total coincidence.
So those error logs can be super helpful, like leaving breadcrumbs to follow.
Exactly. Once you find the error, you have to prevent a total meltdown. That's where exception handling comes in. Things like try-catch blocks and error boundaries. They help contain the damage and stop a minor glitch from turning into a full-blown crash.
So it's like a safety net for your code. If one part fails, the whole thing doesn't come crashing down.
Exactly. And don't forget about crash reporting tools like Firebase Crashlytics or Sentry. They're crucial for monitoring your app stability and spotting issues that might be affecting users.
It's like having a whole team of digital detectives on the case, tracking down those elusive bugs.
Precisely. Now shifting gears to another crucial part of app development, teamwork. Be prepared for questions like, how do you collaborate with other team members, like designers and project managers?
Ah, yes. The art of working together. Even when deadlines are tight and the design isn't pixel perfect.
Flexibility is key. This question is all about your communication and collaboration skills. Are you comfortable with daily stand-up meetings? What tools do you use to communicate, like Slack or project management software?
And version control systems like GitRight. Those are essential for working on code together without accidentally deleting each other's work. We've all been there, haven't we?
Let's just say version control exists for a reason. Highlight your experience with Git. Talk about how it helps teams work together seamlessly.
It's like having a magic undo button for group projects.
Yeah.
No more throwing your computer out the window in frustration.
Exactly. But it goes beyond the tools, too. It's about bridging that communication gap between different roles. Designers and developers sometimes speak different languages.
Sometimes it feels like they're speaking Klingon.
Right. But you have to find common ground, understand each other's perspectives, and work towards a shared vision. For example, instead of just throwing code over to the designers, talk about how you actively seek their input. Ask clarifying questions. Make sure everyone's on the same page.
So it's a bit like a dance. Everyone has their role, and you're making sure no one steps on each other's toes.
Exactly. And don't forget about project managers. They're like the conductors of this orchestra, keeping everyone on track and making sure the project is delivered on time and within budget.
Speaking of beautiful music, let's talk about the user interface. I'm guessing questions about UI design come up a lot.
Absolutely. This is where your code comes to life for the user. So you need to show you understand good UI design principles.
We're talking about things like making sure buttons actually look like buttons, and the navigation is easy to use, even for someone who's never used a smartphone before.
Exactly. You want to convey that you understand the importance of clarity, consistency, and user feedback. Mentioning specific techniques you've used can be impactful too, like using design patterns to create familiar interface elements.
Design patterns, those are like pre-built Lego sets for app interfaces, right? You have all the pieces, you just need to put them together the right way.
That's a great analogy. And don't underestimate the power of prototyping either. Tools like Figma and Adobe XD let you create interactive prototypes to test your designs and get early feedback.
Because it's way better to find a misplaced button before you spent hours coding it.
Right.
Like that saying, measure twice, cut once, but for apps.
Exactly. And this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful. Let's say you're struggling to explain your design process in an interview. RoleCatcher can analyze your experience and suggest ways to reframe your answers. It can even help you incorporate industry-specific terms. It's like having a design expert in your back pocket.
Okay, I'm convinced this AI is like a whole team of career coaches crammed into my phone. But let's switch gears a bit. We've talked a lot about building apps, but how do you actually know if you're successful?
The million-dollar question. Be prepared for something like, how do you measure the success of mobile applications?
Because downloads alone don't tell the whole story right. An app could have millions of downloads, but be as exciting as watching paint dry.
Exactly. It's about understanding the metrics that matter. The key performance indicators, KPIs, that show how users are engaging with the app.
So what are some of those golden KPIs that make app developers do a happy dance?
User engagement is a big one. Are people coming back to your app regularly? How long are they spending each time? Are they exploring different features or sticking to just one or two?
So basically you want users to be so hooked on your app that it becomes a part of their daily routine, like that first cup of coffee or scrolling through social media.
Exactly. And then there's retention. Are users sticking around after that initial download? Or are they abandoning ship? High retention means you've created something people actually want to keep using.
It's like the saying, you never forget your first love. But in this case, it's your app that's stealing hearts.
I like that. And let's not forget about conversion. If your app is designed to get users to do something specific, like make a purchase or sign up for something, you need to track how well it's doing that.
Because ultimately, an app's success often comes down to whether it's achieving those business goals right, whether that's making money, getting new customers, or something else entirely.
Exactly. Measuring these KPIs isn't about vanity. It's about gaining actionable insights. Are people using the features you work so hard on? Are they clicking the right buttons? Data tells a story, and you need to be listening.
It's like being a digital detective, but instead of solving crimes, you're solving user experience mysteries and trying to get people as engaged as possible.
I like how you think. Speaking of making sure the user experience is seamless and enjoyable, let's talk about quality assurance. Interviewers often ask, how do you ensure the quality of mobile applications?
Because nobody wants to download an app that's full of bugs and crashes all the time. It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well.
Exactly. It all starts with a solid testing strategy. You need to be familiar with different types of testing, starting with unit testing.
Unit testing. So that's like checking each ingredient in a recipe before you start mixing everything together.
Exactly. You're testing each individual component of your app to make sure it's working as expected. It's about catching those little bugs early on before they have a chance to multiply.
So you're like a code inspector, making sure everything is up to code, literally.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then you have integration testing. This is where you see how all those individual components work together. It's like taking your app for a test drive, making sure the engine runs smoothly, the brakes work, and it's not going to fall apart.
And just like a car, apps need regular maintenance to keep things running smoothly. What about UI testing? That seems pretty important too.
Absolutely. UI testing is all about making sure the user interface behaves as it should. Are the buttons responsive? Do the animations run smoothly? You want to create an experience that's not just functional, but enjoyable.
Because a clunky, unresponsive user interface can really ruin a great app. It's like having a fancy sports car with a broken steering wheel.
That's a great analogy. And there are tools for this too, like Espresso for Android and XCUI Test for iOS. They let you simulate user interactions and catch those visual glitches that might have slipped through.
It's like having a team of robot users testing every single part of your app's interface. And speaking of catching things early on, what about code reviews? I imagine those can be a little intimidating.
They can be, but they're so valuable. Having other developers look at your code can help catch potential issues you might have missed.
It's like putting your code on trial with your peers as the jury.
That's one way to put it. And don't forget about linting tools. These are programs that analyze your code for potential errors and inconsistencies. They're like a grammar checker for your code, making sure everything is clean, consistent, and ready for the world to see.
It's all about presenting your best work. But even with all the testing and quality assurance in the world, there's always room for improvement, right? Which brings us to user feedback.
Absolutely. Interviewers might ask something like, how do you incorporate feedback and user reviews into your development process?
Because even the most well-designed app can benefit from real-world user experiences.
Right. Exactly. User feedback is so important. You need to show that you have a system for collecting, analyzing, and acting on it.
So no hiding from those App Store reviews, no matter how harsh they might be.
Definitely not. Embrace those reviews, both good and bad. Positive reviews are great social proof, but negative reviews can actually be even more helpful. They can highlight areas for improvement that you might not have thought of.
The truth hurts sometimes, but it can also make your app a lot better.
Exactly. And there are different ways to collect feedback, like in-app surveys, feedback forms, and even social media monitoring.
Social media is like a gold mine of user feedback, both good and bad. It's where people go to rave about the things they love and rant about the things they hate.
Exactly. That's why you need a strategy for managing those conversations and addressing those negative comments.
So it's not just about collecting feedback. It's about showing users that you're listening and that you're using their feedback to make the app better. It's about having a conversation with your users and letting that dialogue shape the future of your app.
Perfectly put. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into mobile app development, I want to emphasize the importance of continuous learning.
Because in tech, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. It's like trying to run a marathon while standing still.
Exactly. This field is constantly changing, so you need to show that you're committed to lifelong learning. And that's where RoleCatcher comes in again. Their platform isn't just for interview prep. It's a resource you can use throughout your career. They offer personalized guidance, industry insights, and even salary data. It can help you navigate your entire career in mobile development.
It's like having a career GPS, guiding you toward your dream job and beyond.
Precisely.
Wow. That was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
We covered so much ground today, from coding basics to acing those tough interview questions. But before we let our listeners loose on the world, any last-minute advice for aspiring app developers?
Remember, it all comes down to preparation. Do your research on the company, understand their products, and think about how your skills and experience fit their needs. It's like going on a date. You wouldn't show up without checking out their profile first.
And having at least a few conversation starters ready to go.
Exactly. Be ready to talk about why you're passionate about mobile development, what excites you about their company and the work they do. Enthusiasm can make a big difference.
It shows you're not just there for the paycheck.
Yeah.
You actually care about building something great.
Exactly. And don't forget, RoleCatcher has your back. They can help you every step of the way. Their AI platform can help you tailor your resume practice, your answers, even research different career paths.
It's like having a personal career coach available 24/7.
Precisely.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of mobile app development and how to conquer those interviews.
Good luck out there.
Go build something amazing.